Hello, everyone. This is Zach Klein, and I am going to be streaming. Hold on. Going to be streaming X3 Terran Conflict. This is technically my third stream, but the second was not really all that interesting or viable, so I did not upload that, at least not to YouTube. It should be available on Twitch VOD if you really would like to see me fumbling around with scripts and other things for about an hour. But anyway, I am here now, and I am happy to try this again. Basically, what I'm going to be demonstrating, hopefully, is just the basics of starting up a game. I like the Humble Merchant. I've started this several times previously in that way. Mostly because it's a slow start, and we don't have to fuss with combat, which is not difficult, or not inaccessible per se, but just not really the focus of what I've been scripting for the past while. I have scripted basically a very simple script to get output from the trade interface. So I will demonstrate that. I will also just demonstrate how I play this game at all with the OCR features of my screen reader, non-visual desktop access, aka NVDA, which is available free if anyone cares to check it out. I am available in the chat. I'll try to check the chat every few minutes or so if I remember. But for now, let me just quickly get my log file open and hold on. Let's see. See if anyone. Alright, I just wanted to check that the chat was working in case anyone cared to use it, but it doesn't look like anyone's actually in it, so that's fine. If you have any questions, you can feel free to email me as well, or hit me up on Reddit at blindguynw or in audiogames.net. I'm Z Klein, Kline, there. So, basically, before I get into the gameplay proper, I have set it up so that the script basically logs all the trade information, or most of the trade information, to a file whenever I dock at a station. It does this automatically. There are a few different items that are kind of specialized that it doesn't quite handle properly yet. I'm still working on that. But it should at least give you a sense of how this works. And I have used this successfully to do several profitable trades. So that is at least a step in the right direction. I'm going to go ahead and start. And go on the assumption that I've got a working stream.
User account permission. 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 User account permission.
skip the opening cutscene, which does at least have a very nice voiceover. So. I have done this same start before, for the record, a couple times now, on Twitch and by myself. Mostly I like it just because it's familiar and quiet, and I can do the trade stuff without having to worry necessarily about being attacked by pirates or whatever. And even if I am, I can theoretically just call out for help from the local authorities and they will come in and waste those bastards. So just waiting. Come
on. Argon, Flight School, Buster.
All right. I'm going to pause real quick and talk a little about OCR and the problems thereof. Basically, I use OCR a lot in this game. The only reason I do that is because there's no other way to get certain information like menus and such. The downside is that it is sometimes very possible to run the built-in OCR feature of NVDA and get either nothing at all or stuff which is considerably less usable. And the solution I found is generally to just quit out of that OCR result and run it again. It's slow, but it does generally work if you poke at it enough. I should also point out that the manual is kind of invaluable in terms of providing detailed information on menu layouts and such, especially for the main sidebar, which is kind of where we begin, or where you do everything for the most part. And there are lots of keyboard controls. There's also lots of keyboard controls that are undefined or that I might theoretically be able to add with scripts, but I haven't yet had a lot of success figuring out a way to do that. I would love to be told if there is a way to do it without having to fuss with the very lengthy menu interface. OCR does struggle a bit with that one, just because it's kind of convoluted. So, that being said, let's unpause. I'll check the chat real quick in case anyone's in here. Huh, doesn't seem like it. Or maybe I'm just get confused because I'm not used to streaming. To switch chat. I probably should theoretically look into an alternative for Twitch in the long term because it doesn't have the best accessibility, but sometimes it's at least the most mainstream thing I know of, so. I just need to make sure that we're actually streaming here, because I have no way of telling how many anyway, enough of that. Now, of course, the screen reader probably is going to freeze because that's how it does. So I'm going to try restarting that. Give me a minute. Or maybe my whole computer will freeze. That would be fun too. At least I know the game isn't freezing.
Discoverer.
I just need to know where the screen reader is, because if without the screen reader I can't make head nor tail of some of his. So, technical difficulties, just what I always wanted. Aha. There we are.
Loading NVDA, please wait. No previous program manager. Mozilla F3T01 column. Mozilla Firefox. Mozilla Firefox. Navigation tool. Desktop list. F3 4 line dash options chat switch Mozilla F3T01 column. F3T01 column 4 line dash options 22 4 line dash 4 line dash switch no. Go to screen summary link 4 line dash Find dialog. Type the text you wish to find edit. 4 line dash switch. Clickable button pop out. Button blank. Bitrate 5008. F3T01.
All right, I'm going to just abandon the idea of using chat for now. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Hadi, if you're watching, a friend of mine volunteered to basically describe, or basically copy out any messages from the chat that might be of interest. So I'm going to ask him to, if he's watching, to please do that. If anybody does come through. All right. Turn off Do Not Disturb. All right. Screw that. I've had enough fighting with the actual streaming system and not actually playing the game. So I am currently drifting in Heron's Nebula, where I usually start as a humble merchant. I'm going to just quickly dock at a station and demonstrate what I've done with scripting real quick before talking a bit about the rest of the game interface.
Discovery Argon Trading Station.
That's as good as any other. Basically,
Docking granted.
I used page up, page down to find reliable targets, and then hit Shift D to have the autopilot do my docking for me. This should all be fairly familiar to other people who may have watched this stream previously. What's going to be different here is that I have written a small script to go through and basically do the trade output for me. And for the sake of my sanity, I've made it also give me a credit balance, which is theoretically also accessible on the OCR, or with the OCR, but is a little harder to get to. For anybody interested, I'm going to pop in and show you what the OCR gives me on the trade screen, just to show you how frustrating it is otherwise to work with, before we pull up the script. I guess I should point out that the reason this game is at all accessible, and I'd say it's maybe 98% there, is that it provides really excellent audio cues for a whole bunch of things, principally in the person of the ship's computer, but also just in general. Um, Not even just even the little beeps are helpful because there's a different tone used for confirmation versus like getting into a menu versus getting out of a menu, that kind of thing. Sometimes there are tones played at the top or bottom of a menu, which is helpful, although that's kind of inconsistent. And just, I think that the remaining 2% is where I'm going to need some help getting over the hump. Because sometimes OCR fails, as you'll see, and sometimes you have to do clumsy stuff like scripting into log files. But for people who are willing to do that and to be, I guess, a little patient, I feel like there's a lot of potential in this game. Remarkably so, compared to many others of the genre. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up time here with the J key, just because otherwise waiting for docking is going to take a while. I have incidentally left my Discoverer secondary ship kind of drifting in the middle of nowhere, but I will probably bring that around at some point. I need to thank Psychro on the Egosoft forums for making this accessible, or not making this accessible, making the script a little more robust, because the one I had previously did not take into account basically operating from...
On behalf of our President and Senator, the Argon Federation welcomes you aboard.
Connection to local trading network established.
The other script I had previously, which I wrote myself, did not take into account operating in space and getting trade prices from...
Dear visitors, we are experiencing some minor surges in our power grid.
Okay,
Please excuse
that's...
any inconvenience.
I'm going to go ahead and turn off station announcements. I find them fun, but they're a little... Anyway, let's bring up options. Hold on. Basically, you can bring up options in the station by hitting escape. I think Shift O only works when you're in space. Don't tell me I'm going to have to restart NVDA again for decent OCR. I might just go ahead and do that, because clearly it's not cooperating. Occasionally you'll get into this spiral where you'll get no OCR at all, and as far as I know, the only solution is to either restart the screen reader or restart the game, neither of which is necessarily fun. I'm in the sidebar menu, okay, which is not where I want it to be. OCR is being unusually uncooperative today, so I'll just leave the ship announcements on.
Attention.
Because
Today there is a sale in the
options,
hardware shop on level
I can
2. Don't
theoretically
miss
change
special
them when I
offers.
get out into space again. That's fine. So let's hit D. I'm going to show you what the trade menu does and why it's annoying.
Argon cloth is one of the most Versatile items to be found throughout
Right.
the X
And
universe.
okay, computer
It is
just gonna
traded in great bulk.
keep yammering at me until I.
Computer components are important resources for the production of all modern technology. From wristwatches to gigantic spaceships, everything is controlled by computers.
Okay, basically I have it set to do verbose ship or verbose item descriptions, or rather, the computer is set to verbose input, which is helpful for a number of reasons. Um, the alternative would be to have to basically arrow through these items blindly, because I don't know until I hit, I think it's U, what each item is, because this is what OCR shows me.
Result document. Stamp. Button. Chlorine. Crystal. Item run. Laboratory. Mixed calculus. Not trouble. Space euro. Armor law enforcement upgrade. Rudder optimization. Equipment. Commodity logistics. Market.
Now it's showing me clearly
F313,000. Armor citizen. Your Mercury. It's set. Computer multi-top. So. Upgrade. Upgrade. 9,778 plus 0 CR. Bottom.
I'm going to guess I have 9,778 credits. But the annoying thing is that, obviously, it's missing out the trade prices completely when I OCR through this, or when I arrow down through this with my screen reader. So, I have basically taken a simple script and looped through the... I'll show you what that looks like. I use log file 0150, or 00150, I guess. Basically, okay. So basically what I have is I have it set up to give me a readout of the station and the credits that I start with before doing trading. And then it looks like this.
Singularity engine time accelerator trading at 252 credits. Space euro trading at 1,252 credits. Item run trading at 4,044 credits. Rudder optimization trading at 84 credits. Armor law enforcement items trading at 7,000.
Now the thing is, the rudder optimization probably does not cost 84 credits. I don't know how much it costs, but that's one of like a few ship upgrade things that I'm told there's no easy way to get the script price or to get the price from those via scripting. So I'll just have to figure out a way to calculate that price manually and display it. But basically, the way that this works is that I have a script loop through every item on the station and get its price, and then output the item and the price, obviously. And for stuff that is bought only or sold only, not by trading stations, but by things like factories, that gets output in a slightly different format. And that's basically the script at the moment. And using this and the credit balance above, it's possible to do manual trading. Maybe not quite as efficiently as if I had like the trade system extension, which lets me read prices from a station without having to dock with it. This script has theoretically been customized for that, but I'm not sure how to bind hotkeys yet, especially without using the game interface. So if I can do that, I will bind the script to a hotkey and then have it basically read me the price list of my target before I get there. So, and this is set to clear the log every time you dock at a station, and the whole process happens kind of automatically. The only thing I would say is that if you're blind and reading this with a screen reader, you need to close the log beforehand, or else you're probably not going to get the new information. Fairly sensible. So, close that. Now, I'm going to see if there's anything I want to buy here. I don't think so. I'm going to look for another place to start my trade runs. And then this will give me a chance to demonstrate another feature of the game and why it's theoretically possible to be much more accessible than most others. For now, I'm going to undock. I hit escape a couple times to get out of the trade menu and then hit enter. That should undock me.
Or transporter.
Okay, now, while you undock, I was told by someone on Reddit who goes by the name, I believe it was Skeptic1111 who told me this, that you hit S a few times after you undock because that brings your ship down from the station docking clamps. And if you don't do that, there is a slight risk you run into the station, which obviously is not great for us or anybody. So I've gone and done that a few times, and basically the reason being that autopilot will not activate within a certain range of a docking or of a dock for in-game reasons. But now let me show you this feature. Basically, the sector map, which is otherwise not super accessible with OCR, does let you navigate to objects you can't see, or you can't navigate to objects beyond your ship's sensor range. The default sensor range on this ship is 10 kilometers, I believe, which is not great. So to do this, you hit the period key to bring up the sensor map, or sector map, I should say, and then you're basically able to arrow up and down through everything that's visible. To hear an item, you hit T for target.
Free Argon Trading Station. Kahuna Bakery. M. High Yield. Production.
I'm basically arrowing down.
Alpha. High Yield. Ore Mine. Ore Mine. M. Beta.
Let's go visit an ore mine.
Command rejected.
Oh, I guess I'm not far enough from... Whoops.
Ore mine. Ore mines are mainly built around... Command rejected. Command rejected. Command rejected.
Hold on. Not what I wanted. I'm just trying to get back to the map here, because if I can pull that up.
Ore mine. M. Alpha.
Let's go with that one.
Recognizing. Land. Result of Terran Navy. H3. 3 on track. Kahuna Bay. IE. 6. Comms. Landed kit. Own kit. Autopilot. Not. Display on monitor. Autopilot. Not. Own. Landed kit. Comms. Landed kit. Own kit. Autopilot. Not.
Basically it does pull up a menu, so I can totally go down here and theoretically, I think you start out on comms, and then you can go down from there. The O NVDA is reading out should be 0, obviously.
Ore mines are mainly built around small...
Recognizing. 308. Terran Nebula H1 with 3 on Kahuna Bay. Comms. At. Own kit. Autopilot. Not. X3DT. Recognizing. Land. Bottom. Land. Screen. Land. Terran Nebula. X3DT. Recognizing. Result of human. Land. Bottom. X3.
Command rejected.
Hold on. Still seem to be stuck in the vicinity of the...
Right. Ore mine. M. Alpha. Command rejected.
Still seem to be in the vicinity of the...
Docking granted.
of the
Autopilot
trade station,
activated.
which is fine, so I'll just move down farther until I'm out of that range, and then start docking, which is fine. I'm going to the ore mine just to demonstrate purchasing things.
Rhymes Gate. Rhyme Ore mine. Space view. Discover asteroid.
I'm using page down to scroll through my currently available targets.
Argon. Split. Tela. Split. High-tech transporter.
These are all ships, obviously. One trick I was told about was basically to scroll through a list, or to find an enemy ship, or any ship really, and then use the follow command with the autopilot. And that will basically take you wherever that ship is going, and that's a good way to find warp gates or other things that you might not otherwise. And I'm also told that I should get exploration software to install on one of my ships and basically send it out as a giant automated mapper, which will be very helpful for future runs.
Video.
Let me check chat while I'm here. I thought I heard something come in. Guess not. Still cruising along.
Split gate. Free Argon gate. Cloud R gate. Cloud base.
That's another gate.
West. Teladi weapons dealer. Split Kahuna Argon. Flight school. R gate. Ore mine. M gamma.
There are 3 ore mines here. I think that the way that it works is that each separate station or whatever that you find of a given type in a given sector gets a different letter. So I think it starts with alpha, beta, gamma, since this is the Greek alphabet.
Rhymes ore mine. M alpha.
I think that's the one I was going to. Oh, for the love of God. OCR. I'm going to bring up the ship's command console to see what it thinks my current orders are. You do that with Shift C. As you can see, part of the problem is that this is a limitation probably of the OCR, is that you can sometimes run the same OCR on the same screen and get radically different results, which is...
ore mine. M alpha.
Let's try docking again, just to be safe.
Autopilot
And then start up
activated.
time acceleration. But the problem is that you can theoretically run the same OCR command on the same sector and get totally different, or on the same screen, and get totally different results because the screener is silly. This is actually not NVDA itself. It's OCR built into Windows 10, I am told. I do not know how much leeway there is to customize it on the source code side. Really, in my ideal world, the game would be able to interface to a speech system on its own and do things like read its menus, which is theoretically very possible to arrange. Like I said, I think that we're 98% accessible, and with scripts could easily come to 100%. The biggest problem is writing the scripts and figuring out what kind of logic you want them to provide you. I was thinking, for instance, of adding a cargo summary sort of function until I remembered that theoretically my trade script could theoretically be called even if I'm not physically there with my trading ship. So I need to figure out how to handle that. It's a programming problem, not a game problem. But anyway, I'm moving along towards the ore mine here, and I will demonstrate how you buy units and things. One thing which is not obvious is that this game has a lot of keyboard commands, and a lot of times they operate on at least a semi-consistent way, menus basically. Like, for instance, you have a property menu. If you hit R, you can see all your property that includes ships, stations, what have you. And up and down arrows move through the property, left and right arrows filter from one selection to another. Like, filter from showing you just ships to just stations to all things to whatever. And that also works on the sector map. Now, I have an old X3 player by the name of Darren, who has suggested to me that I need to figure out a way to get access to basically show the coordinates of objects on the map, which is something I'm going to try and work on. They're theoretically displayed visually below the map, but that's obviously a little difficult to read with reliable precision. When we're done with this ore mine purchase
Successfully docked.
or purchasing, I will show you.
On behalf of our president and senator, the Argon Federation welcomes you aboard.
Connection to
Show you a
local
little bit of
train network
how this reads.
established.
I'm just going to go into the log file again and show you what this has to offer. Come on.
22, X3TT1, column 2. 22, X3TT1, column 1.
Like I said, in my ideal world, none of this extra fumbling would be necessary, but it is. So, come on. All right, I'll get back into it somehow. Just not used to fumbling around several windows at once, none of which are the ones I'm interested in. Guess it's something of an occupational hazard. Looks like I closed the documents window at the time, which was not what I wanted to do, because the log file is always dumped in the same spot every time. So for future reference, I suggest you have a separate window just showing that folder. Hold on. Okay, there we go. It's in Documents, Egosoft, X3TC. So I have, incidentally, you might have heard plugin manager and so forth. My ultimate goal, theoretically, is to try and make an accessibility plugin, even if I can't get a lot of help from development, or from the actual game developers, although I would love to. If I can make an accessibility plugin with scripts to do a lot of things for us, or show us a lot of things that are harder to see, then that would be good. Okay. Now, 2 items here. It's buying energy cells at 19 credits, selling ore at 200 credits. 9,778. For the sake of illustration, I'm going to buy up as much ore as I can, just to demonstrate. 200. If you do, I believe that the way that it works is that ore, at least, is sufficiently small that it only takes up one unit of cargo per. Certainly energy cells do. So hit D to bring up the trade menu.
Energy cell. Ore is the most common mineral.
So you go to ore and then hit end to bring basically maximum ore. Hit enter. It says ore bought, but it doesn't tell me how much.
Gained recognition.
And it says that I got recognition, which is helpful
Result
for...
document blank. Bottom. No previous renew. Screen renew blank. Object renew blank. F3D. Recognizing. Result document. Strategy. Product. Primary result. Energy. Secondary result. None. Market. F38,713,000. F colon. Space. 3. 8. 7. 1. 3. 0. 0.
I'm guessing that what I actually have here, there's a line at the bottom here. It says F, which stands for freight. The reason that this particular section is a little weird to read is that NVDA doesn't understand that there's a slash. So what it's actually saying is 387 slash 3000, I believe. But it interprets the slash as a 1. So that's part of why I wanted to do a cargo summary, because it's a little bizarre otherwise. Basically, all that would do is show that you have X units of cargo, and basically divide it up and show which ones you have and so on. That could theoretically also output to a log file, probably a separate one.
Please note that any space weed consumption
Let's
aboard
undock.
the station is against.
I meant to turn off the station announcements. I may as well do that when I'm here, while I'm in space. I forgot. So I'll pull away with the S key again to strafe downwards.
Plutarch, mineral transporter.
Okay, aside from trade, the other major issue I run into at the moment is missions. Missions are kind of annoying because at the moment they only indicate if they're available by a visual symbol. I am trying, hopefully, to script an audio indication of basically this.
Incoming message.
Oh, something like that. Basically, this, I'd like to set up an audio indication of, okay, this unit, target, ship, station, whatever, offers a mission of this type. Maybe it could be like a different tone for different missions. Trade versus defense versus combat versus whatever. And then there's also mission guidance, which is basically what it sounds like. The game will point you in the direction of the mission objective if you don't know where you're going. And that's fine, except obviously it's also visual. So if I can get some kind of audio tone saying, hey, mission this way, then that will be helpful. Let me go ahead and hit Shift-O to pull up options. Down arrow twice, which I believe is sound settings. Aha. Okay, I'm going to go down arrow right, down to the bottom, which is where disable station announcements. I think. This is something interesting. I've noticed that sometimes, not always, but sometimes when you're using the OCR, it simply doesn't show you the one item on your menu that you've actually selected, which is bizarre, but is occasionally helpful because sometimes I get a little confused if the menu does happen to wrap around or whatever. So that's done. Now I will hit escape a couple times to break out of the options menu.
Gate, Argon Prime.
Let's go through the gate to Argon Prime.
Autopilot activated.
Maybe I can find a place to sell my ore. And even if I can't, it's at least another sector. For the record, there are a ton of external resources on this game, basically wikis and guides and stuff that will be very useful for both blind and sighted players alike because they go through all sorts of information about items, stations, whatever, resources. So basically, a summary of my current needs would be some kind of mission indication system, and ideally a way to do trade, a way to figure out the price of ship upgrades, because at the moment I know those aren't being reported properly by my trade script, and possibly some help doing manual combat, which is harder, obviously, for us since we can't see the ship. Fortunately, there are lots of good autopilot programs out there that basically do combat for us, with a few exceptions, so that's very helpful. Oh yes, and some way of doing getting coordinates, presumably for any arbitrary object, would be good. I know that they exist, it's just getting a script that's difficult. So now I'll keep just going straight.
Argon, supply gate, boron, food Pluton, argon, flight school, argon, troop transport, image argon, food gate, boron, food Plutarch, mineral transport.
Just for the hell of it, I'm going to follow the mineral transporter. I hit I, go down a few times, I think it's twice in this case, and then enter, and that will choose to follow. I only know that because I've done OCR on this menu enough to get familiar with it. Of course, that changes if you add other options to the menu, like if you buy attack software, you will be able to theoretically attack it from there or whatever. This ship, the Mercury, doesn't even have weapons, so I can't do that, which is fine.
Recognizing result document, your Mercury.
Doing a scan.
Plutarch mineral transport. ASCII 6. Distance 6.3 times. Bottom distance
6.35 kilometers, not bad. Guessing he's just about as slow as we are.
Recognizing result of your Mercury. ASCII 6. Distance 6.36. F3D.
Or maybe not. But anyway. Remember, scan range, at least by default, is 10 kilometers. Maybe if I were playing this for real, I would have probably bought a duplex or triplex scanner right away to increase that. But I'm just using this mostly as a test bed and demonstration, so I'm not. For the record, like I said, if anyone has questions, please hit me up. I am probably much better at answering individual questions than I am at giving extemporized demos like this. So, I mean, I realize that it doesn't sound like it's accessible in a lot of ways, but trust me, it's doable if you put in a little effort and time. So.
Gate, NMM, argon, civilian, argon, police, argon, equipment dog, argon, high-tech image, Plutarch, gate, boron, food transporter, Plutarch, argon, flights, NMMC, mineral transporter, argon, police, bus, argon, equipment dog.
So, I'm going to pull up the sector map again and just to see what's available. The neat thing about it is that, it's period again. The neat thing about the sector map is that it will show you stuff even if it's no longer in your sensor range, as long as you've seen it at one point, or you've had an object like a satellite that's seen it for you, then you'll be able to explore.
Argon equipment, image recognition, production complex.
I was just using the up and down arrows through my list of stations. I was trying to find, say, the shipyard or something, but it's not there because my ship has not passed within 10 kilometers of it, which is fine. So, I do not have a particular destination in mind. At this point, I'm just kind of exploring to see what I can find.
Gate, Pluto, split, argon, free argon, argon, recon, discoverer, hauler, NMMC, mineral transporter.
You know what? I might use this time to show off a third-party site and try and find a use for my ore that I bought, because that would be helpful. Let's do that. Google. The thing about this is that there is an X3 wiki site, but it is unfortunately not available anymore for reasons. I think that the domain name expired or some such thing. Thankfully, the Internet Archive exists, and I'm going to go over there and access it that way. I am currently just letting my ship drift a bit, since I'm not anticipating any dangers from pirates or whatever in home space. So,
Loading document. Internet Archive. Digital Library of Free and Forwardable books. Moving. Navigate. Out of list edit. Navigation and mark list with 11.
hold on.
Out of listing.
Open a second tab.
Navigation to combo box collapse. Search with Google or enter and edit. Autocomplete. Done. F3 wiki or Google search.
I probably should have
F3 wiki or Google search. Search mode. Heading level.
maybe bookmarked that or put the archived copy on the desktop or something.
Main landmark search results heading level 1. When results heading level 2. Or F3 wiki heading level 3 link.
Oh, yes. No, that's...
Menu. Open link in. Open link in. Open link in. Bookmark this link. Same link. Same link to pocket. Copy link location equal 1 time. F3 wiki. Internet Archive. Digital.
Copying
Navigation
the link location.
Link when. Out of list edit. No previous edit field. Navigation landmark list with 11 items. Search landmark search the archive. Filter and search available below edit. Autocomplete. Main landmark search and
Theoretically, there are other places to get this information, but
link text.
it's just so easier. Hold on.
Internet archive search. Link moving. Search landmark search the archive. Filter and search available below edit. Autocomplete https. No next edit field. Navigation landmark list with 11 items. Search and
Oh, that was the wrong search field.
Internet archive search http.
Let's go back.
Loading document. Internet archive. Digital library of free and forward. No next edit field. Navigation landmark list with 11 items. Search landmark search the archive. Filter and search available below edit. Link skip to main content. Navigation landmark list with 11 items. W link when. Toggle navigation button collapse. Search landmark search the archive. Filter and search available below edit. Autocomplete. Clickable search metadata radio button checked. Clickable search text contents radio button not checked. Clickable search TV news caption radio button not checked. Clickable search archive website radio button not checked. Checked. Search button. When machine document edit. Enter URL or words related to items. Don't page edit. Blank. Blank. When machine document. Blank. When machine Mozilla Firefox. When machine Mozilla. Close button. Enter URL or word. Page unselected. When machine document.
My goal in doing all this is to try and find a buyer for the ore that I just purchased at.
When machine Mozilla. Close button.
I didn't check. Theoretically, I could have checked whether or not this was buying below or above average price, but I didn't. Probably should have done so, but that's okay. I'm not.
Navigation landmark list with 11 items. Link when. Explore more than 3. Clickable enter. Edit symbol. Button close. Button sub. Find the way. Clickable. 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 Click. Clickable. 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 When machine availability. WordPress worker link. Check a link. Click enter URL or words related to a site. Blank. Blank.
Come on.
PHP slash. Explore. Clickable enter URL. Edit symbol. Complete. Button close. Enter URL or words. Dot. P. H. Slash. O. R. E. Blank. Blank. Edit symbol. Complete. Enter URL or word. Edit symbol. Complete. Close button. Submit query button.
Go on. Gonna pop back into the game while I'm waiting for that to work.
Argon. Police. Argon equipment dock.
Let's pull up the map and see if we found any more stations.
Image record. Free Argon equipment dock.
Okay, just the 3. Fine. I guess I'm just kind of drifting in one direction. Now, the one thing that coordinates would give us would be a way of getting a sense of where objects are in relation to one another, which is still a thing I struggle with slightly. So.
Find the way up. Same 60. Link summary of explore. Link 1900. Link 19. Link sub. Same 65 times between. January 1. April 7. 2080 link.
Alright, let's look at this.
Visited. Loading document. Or X3 wiki visit. Link right way up. Main landmark of heading level 1. Open new edit link edit section. Open new heading level 2. After logs edit link edit section. After logs heading level 2. Trading information edit link edit section. Trading information. Table with 2 rows and column 2 primary resource. Row 2 list with 58 items. Bullet link ammunition. After bullet link cluster after forms. Bullet link concussion impulse generator forms. Bullet link cyclone missile. After bullet link disintegrator rifle. After list row 1 primary resource. Column 3 secondary resource. Column. Row 2 list with bullet link concussion impulse gen. Bullet link cyclone missile. After bullet link disintegrator. Bullet link missile reduction.
These are lists of places that will buy ore as a primary resource.
Bullet link electromagnetic. Bullet link EMP rifle assembly. Bullet link energy chain gun forms. Bullet link energy check. Bullet link flame missile reduction. Bullet link house cannon forms. Bullet link house cannon ammunition. Bullet link fuel missile manufacture. Bullet link hammer torpedo fabric. Bullet link heavy shield. Bullet link heavy weapons complex. Bullet link high energy plasma thrower forms. Bullet link high yield production complex.
Ah! I know. This is good. This is very good. I know that there was a high yield production complex at or back in Heron's Nebula, actually, where I came from. So I'm going to go back and basically sell the ore there if I can swing it. I can make a profit, even if I'm mostly literally playing it by ear.
We are scanned.
There comes the police scanner.
Scans confirm you're clean and good to go. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you. If I had been carrying, say, space weed or something on here, I would be in trouble now, but I'm not, so we're good. Speeding up time. Now, the way that, I guess, the ways that this game could be improved are pretty obvious, I'd hope, after this play session. But I also do think that it's very possible to have fun with things as they currently stand, even if missions are difficult. Just mostly because I don't like having to go through and find...
Entering system. Terran's Nebula.
Let's bring up the map. Hold on.
Kahuna Bay. High yield. Production complex. Alpha. Docking granted. Autopilot activated.
Recognizing. Results of Sector 1. 300 Terran H1. Your Mercury. 3 on track. Kahuna Baker. Require Omanem. Run. Silicon. Test you. Minus 4. High yield. Production complex. Alpha. Atom 37. Atom 30. Atom 30. Atom 30. Atom 30. Atom 2B. Atom 30. Atom 20. Atom 30. Auto-aim. Auto-aim.
I was just doing a OCR to see if the sector map would give me anything useful. Clearly it didn't. So.
Docking granted. Autopilot activated. High gate. High yield. Production complex. Alpha.
Your Mercury. It's auto. High yield. Production. 30. Distance 34.4. Autumn. Distance
Okay.
30. F3DD.
Gonna speed up time again, because 34 kilometers is a slow business. I think that the Mercury's speed starts off at like 100 and some odd meters per second, which is nothing. So once again, if I can figure out a way to get those upgrade prices read out, that would help a lot too. I know that some of them are pretty cheap. It's literally only a few that don't read out right. Like, I think there's the basics of rudder optimization and engine tuning and such. That basically what they do is they vary in price depending on the number you've already installed on your ship. So that's why the trade script doesn't really like them. Now, with my luck, when I arrive, I'm going to be selling ore at a loss, but we'll see. Note for future reference: always check your average prices beforehand, so you know whether or not you're buying and selling at a loss. Or theoretically, I could set up an automated ship to do this for me, but that's a little beyond my interest at the moment. So.
Recognizing. Results of 600. Autumn. 600%. Left 6.
Aha. Docking now. Or wait, I will be in a bit.
F3DD. Recognizing. Results of missile. You are not this. EF LT plus 475.
Aha.
Successfully docked.
On behalf of our President and Senator, the Argon Federation welcomes you aboard.
Connection to local trade.
22. 20. F3DD 1 column 1.
All right. Let's check the.
F3DD 1 2. F3DD 1 column 1. F3D 20.
Let's pull up the log again.
You places list pictures 200 settings.
I don't know why I reflexively close down the folder where it exists every single time. I think it's mostly out of habit because I don't like cluttered desktops. So theoretically, it's possible to set up a hotkey with NVDA or something to open that file automatically. Jesus. Okay. That was literally selling at a 4-for-1 loss. I will, or maybe 3-to-1, maybe 3-for-1. I will have to remember that because I bought the ore at 200 credits, and I'm now being offered a chance to sell it for 50. I only have 178 credits left. Look, I think whether or not I made a profit on this trip, and it's obvious that I will not, I think that the fact that I'm able to do this at all is testament to the game's potential accessibility. Because in another game like this, I would totally be literally not able to fly, let alone make a loss on trading. So I think for now I'm going to save and call it, since there hasn't been as much, I guess, interest in asking asking questions or whatever as I'd hoped.
ID 4801.
And it looks like I did not actually turn off announcements as I had hoped. I think what actually I did was hit enter on them, which I thought would save it, and it actually just toggled them back on. So that's a note for next time. Saving. Done. Quit. Quitting. So, I mean, that was about that's about where we are now. I just have the trade script, and it honestly makes one of the interfaces, at least, much more accessible than it was before. And I hope that this kind of similar sort of technique might be applied elsewhere if necessary. So I guess I will say goodbye for the moment, and hope to hear back from anybody interested soon. Thank you so much. Stop recording chat box check. Stop streaming chat box check. Not check. Stop in stream. Stop recording chat box check. Stop in stream chat box not check. Stop recording chat box check.